So let's do that comparison. Here we have the photograph with some labels added by me based on my plots. So I'm assuming I got it right in order to actually add these labels on. Scafell, visible from Rhywyddfa, down in Snowdonia in Wales. So anyone who wants to climb both those mountains, or you could do Glydyfawr if you prefer it. It's less crowded. A bit more wild, doesn't have a cafe on top. You can do a reverse zenith angle between this thing here and either of those two in Wales. Scafell Pike, highest point in England, 778 metres. There are a couple of bumps here on the ridge which goes from Scafell Pike across to Great End at 910. There is a distinct low point of Esk Pike, which is a continuation of that ridge beyond that distinct low point. And then the ridge comes this way over Bowfell, and this side of Bowfell is Crinkle Crags. And what may not have been obvious in the photograph is that this is not the same ridge here. This extends all the way down here. This is in front of them. So where I thought we had Pike of Bliscoe back here, long, low, little bump in between Crinkle Crags and Pike of Bliscoe, and then Bliscoe's across here. Well, my little chevron for the position of Pike of Bliscoe wasn't quite matching the top of this thing because these are more southerly fells. Well south of that ridge, we have Dowcrag here on the south side, in front of Greyfriar behind it. You can see there's a difference there, a distinct difference in height, which is way out of proportion to how far above this horizon level they are. To the east of Dowcrag is the Old Man of Coniston, which is this line here. North of it, and linked to Greyfriar, so across there, is Swirl How. And east of Swirl How, we have Black Sails and Weatherlam. Pike of Bliscoe is behind this lot, and farther north than Pike of Bliscoe, you have Harrison Stickle, Thunachar Knot, and High Raise. And then, of course, beyond that, you have the rest of the Lake District. Skiddaw is out there somewhere, but it's probably down here. So there's the photograph with labels. How well does it match my plots? Well, here's my geometric plot. This is assuming no refraction. You've got to love the way you always have to zoom in, because it always starts at full view. At least what it doesn't do is widen the window to widen the screen, the way GIMP does when you open a wide, low photograph. So we have this long slope up on the left. This was no refraction. This was just a relatively rough one. So I've gone, that's 300 metres, that's 400, that's 500, or something like that. Close enough. Ridge off the near side of Scafell, didn't bother showing it. Because Scafell is aligned almost north-south, so the summit is a ridge here, and the south end of it slopes down this way, and then the north end links across to Scafell Pike. Scafell Pike, a couple of bumps. There's actually quite a low pass there where you can climb up. Ridge coming down off Scafell Pike is drawn in this. A couple of bumps don't even show up. Another notch, Great End. Great End slopes down. That ridge becomes Esk Pike. There is a bit of a spur off Esk Pike in front of that ridge here, which is this line. Esk Pike becomes Bowfell, which disappears from view behind Crinkle Crags. Crinkle Crags rises from here up in front of Bowfell. Slopes down here out of sight behind this lot. This line would be Greyfriars, and this line in front of it, no, sorry, this higher line here would be Core, I think that's Core, which becomes Dowcrag, and the lower line here, which becomes higher back here, is Greyfriars, I think, yes. And then the Dowcrag line underneath becomes Old Man of Coniston, which slopes down here. And the Dowcrag, the Greyfriars line above it, slopes up here to become Swirl How, and then across here to so he doesn't even show there, and Weatherlam, which slopes down that way. Pike of Blisco, as mentioned, is out of sight behind the Old Man of Coniston. Here's that nameless bump to the right of Crinkle Crags. Down and back up to Pike of Blisco and down this way down there. I think that line is Pike of Blisco. Side Pike is the next bump across. It's too far out and too far out to be in the photograph and too low to matter. And behind Swirlhow to Weatherlam Ridge, you've got Harrison Stickle as the highest, steeper sided southern end, in front of Thrunacar Knot, in front of High Raise. Other lines, sea level. This grey line across here is just linking where I calculated sea level over to the right to where I calculated sea level in the middle to where I calculated sea level on the left. You notice this wiggly line. I put the measurement line from the observer to Great End or somewhere near Great End. It doesn't really matter exactly where the far end is. And just went to 1 kilometre, 2 kilometres, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Added a few extras at 8.5 and 9.5. And went all the way out to, I think it went 13, 14, 15, and then went 20, 25, or 20, 25, 30 before I stopped. Obviously, I didn't click exactly on the line every time, which is why it's zigzagged. What else do we have? We have these little pegs. This little peg, this little peg, this little peg, this little peg, and this little peg. These are the... I may have written the core label in the wrong place there. I think this might be core, which becomes the low bump on the west side of... Yes, Dow Crag extends out here and joins onto this thing here, which is a hill called Core. This is not Core, my mistake. This is the little 220 metre, 200 metre, 220, 220, 200 bump in front of, south of, the Hurrock Reservoir wind farm. These are the turbines at Hurrock Reservoir. As you can see, even with no refraction, there would be two of them visible on the hill behind them. And Harter Fell is behind those turbines and in front of the Scarfell Ridge. It's this thing here. Not particularly tall. What else? Of course, there is at least something else in this. There's the tower. Sea level, deck, top. Doesn't necessarily match the actual appearance of the tower, it's just a way of marking the heights. And the centre column should be centred. So when I go to the next image, where I've superimposed the photograph over it and lined it up, as you can see, my calculated position for the tower is to the right of the picture of the tower in the photograph. What does this mean? It means the photographer was standing slightly farther east than I used, the position I used to calculate all of these coordinates. Minor difference. I put him on a little blob down the path from the car park. There's a big pale thing and there's a little square dark patch next to it on the satellite photograph. I put him on a little dark patch. When I tried calculating it from the car park, he was from the end of the road next to the car park. The tower was to the right of the calculated position, so it was somewhere between them. But apart from being slightly off to one side, does my calculated position for Bowfell or Bowfell, whichever it is, match? Does Crinkle Crags match? Does Dow Crag match? Does the Old Man of Coniston match? Does Swirl Howe peeking over the shoulder of the Old Man of Coniston match? Does the ridge across to Black Sails and Weatherlam match? Yeah. Can you see High Raise? No, you can't. Well, that matches. Calculated sea level. Is that anything like where we see the horizon? Well, not really. You can see stuff well below that in the photograph. Scarfell Pike match? No, it's too high. Great End looks about right. This bump is too high. This bump is too high. Scarfell Pike's too high. Scarfell's close but slightly off to the left. As I said, this was the crude one, done with no refraction at all. What if we go to 7/6 refraction? I have my suspicion that I should have gone to 5/4 because that's snow on those mountains. It's pretty bloody cold that morning. Here's a refracted plot, the full thing. Ain't that pretty? I have no idea what level on this counts as full zoom. It's probably somewhere about there. Ish. Those pixels are different sizes. That's going to be annoying. That looks like double zoom. Let's go about there. So, again, from the left, we have the coaster at sea level and the coaster top. That's not the left, though. Starting on the left. Scafell, 400 metre contour line. I did not bother starting all the way out at the coast. 500 metres, it kind of plateaus, and then I think this line's from behind that. Might be from in front of it, not sure which, but whatever, comes up, crosses that line, up various contour lines. Here's one of the things I said about inaccuracy. Sudden spike on the top, because there are contours up to 920, and then there's a 964 peak, and there's no 940 contour. So I'm not sure Google Maps gets this exactly right. We have the east side of Scafell, down into the notch between Scafell and Scafell Pike. Scafell Pike up there. And in front of that, we have the south end of Scafell, has a spur off it to the right, which slopes down, goes out of sight behind Harter Fell there, and slopes down to 600 metres here. This is the 600 metre contour line on the east side of the south end of Scafell. In front of that, obviously we have Harter Fell. This is a 360 metre contour. That's 400 metres. That's 360 and higher up because it's closer. Harter Fell only 649 metres high, whereas the top of this sloping line is at 820. In front of that we have Core, 400, 500, and back down to 400 there. And in front of Core we have that bump south of the turbines, which this time I've gone 180, 200, 220, to 220, 200, 180. And for the turbines I've marked not only the base positions but 50 metres height on each one. So you can see, even if this bump does obscure the base of this turbine, the top of it, most of its height will be visible. Half, well, not half, 20 to 25 metres of the stem of this turbine would be hidden, but if it's taller than that, the top of it will be visible. And these three, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My bad. This one isn't obscured. This one's base would be. This one, 20 some metres, will be obscured. These two will be well above that bump. You notice there is a grey line across here. Oh yeah, that's sea level. So the bump south of the turbine is out of sight below it, Core's visible above it, and in front of Core and Harter Fell you have two turbines. Okay, east of Scafell Pike, the notch that I said existed. You can climb up here from the far side, from Westdale. The last little bit's kind of tricky. No, it's not tricky, it's just expect to have your knee at waist height while getting up it and use your hands rather than just strolling. I think this side's easier but longer. And then you have one bump, two bumps, a little bit of a notch, Great End. Hard Knot is this side of Great End. There is a road just this side of Hard Knot which goes from Ambleside over Rhinos Pass and Hard Knot Pass to get to a point way over here where you can then go around Scafell and up into Westdale on the far side. Not recommended for heavy cars with small engines towing big caravans. Fun on a motorbike, as long as you don't meet an idiot coming the other way. And then, east of Great End, we have the low point before Esk Pike. East of Hard Knot, sorry, east of Core, my bad. you have the low point here where Core becomes Dow Crag, 400 metres above sea level, but below the calculated horizon. We also have the west foot of, well, not the foot, the 300 metre contour line of Swirl Howe all the way down here. There's Esk Pike, again with the spiky triangular top because Google Maps figures. And here's the shoulder of Dow Crag. Esk Pike becomes Bow Fell, Crinkle Crags from 600 metres, barely visible over the horizon, up to 840 as that fairly classic rounded shoulder, and obscures Bow Fell, whichever it is, at this point. So this whole slope here would be hidden. 700 metres at that point, and not that far. If that's 900, and that's 700, where's 0? Well, down there. Here's another shoulder of Dow Crag, because they aren't just neat cones and pyramids, they're complicated craggy shapes, like fells and mountains. Crinkle Crag South. Why do I have a line labelled Crinkle Crag South that far east? Oh well, it doesn't really matter because you won't be able to see it. Yes, there is a little bit sticking off the south side of Crinkle Crags. 560 metre contour just above the horizon there. 680, 640, which doesn't need to be in this diagram because of course it's completely hidden behind Swirl Howe, which is almost completely hidden behind Dow Crag. You have two west sides of Dow Crag here. The one in the middle, that's the 700 metre contour point on it there, and the upper line, which goes all the way to the summit at 778, because there's a minor valley or a coombe or something on the left side, which has near and far sides. Right side of Dow Crag is kind of steep sloping, so Swirl Howe becomes visible above it. Then there's this low part, 660 metres on the side of Dow Crag. It's a little lower, but not down to 640, before it becomes 660 metres on the west side of the Old Man of Coniston, which slopes back up. So Swirl Howe Ridge, it's marked as Swirl Howe there. I think that's Blackfriar. And that's the real Swirl Howe at 802. It's out of sight behind the Old Man of Coniston. Up here, just north of Swirl Howe, there is another peak called Great Cars. They are almost the same peak. It's just a saddle between those two. So the right side of the North Peak disappears from view behind the left side of the near peak. If you're looking from the far side of the Old Man of Coniston, looking from here, you can't see that at all because the Old Man of Coniston is in the way. Right shore of Old Man of Coniston slopes down here. Way down, and there's another shoulder on it, which I think is farther north. It will just be visible for that bit. I think. But yeah, I think this is a northern part of it which becomes invisible behind this slope somewhere there, and then becomes visible again here, from memory. Briefly visible, and then disappears from view again down there, down at 400 metres. And the nearer part of it will be visible all the way down to its 400 metre contour down there. I have to have that the wrong way around because the near 400 metre contour should be the higher one, so that's the near side. Okay, whatever. Thrunacar Knot behind it, Thrunacar, not Thrunacar, is of course completely invisible. Harrison Stickle in front of Thrunacar Knot is also completely hidden. High Rays behind those two, 600 metre contour line below sea level, is also completely hidden. 762 just for Fauhammer. High Rays will in fact become visible on the right because it has a very long eastern slope down here. And this is the real Swirl Howe at 802, and these are... I've forgotten what it's called. Ant Nest or whatever it's called. Something there. And then Weatherlam here. If you go to Bing Maps, you can actually choose Ordnance Survey, which will give you huge amounts of detail and accurate heights, but I was doing this off Google because Google has that line, that measure distance line you can just swing across to see where it intersects a contour. I should probably have figured out how to do that with Bing and got more accurate data, but what the heck, right? Pike of Blisco, 300 metres. Where are you? All the way across here, maybe? Yes. 705, 560. Completely hidden, totally irrelevant. West side of Thunakar Knot, 440 metre contour, that far below sea level, completely irrelevant. So we have a whole lot of lines there, many of which won't be seen. Got the coaster, somewhere there ought to be a tower. Oh, I remember, I know what's happened. I didn't draw the tower in because the tower extends above eye level and I have eye level at the top of the image. Then I saved how far I'd got, then I finished it by adding some extra space at the top and drawing in the tower, and I added the overlay. Forgot to save it with the tower and no overlay. My bad. Anyway, there it is with the tower and the overlay. And again, the tower, which I've drawn in a little more detail this time, it's too far right and a little bit too high. But you can see on the right, Weatherlam, pretty good match. Black Sails, pretty good match. That ridge of Swirl Howe showing over the shoulder of the Old Man of Coniston, pretty good match. Old Man of Coniston, pretty good match. Greyfriar and Black Sails, those are the names. It's not Ant Hill, it's Black Sails. Close, but no cigar. Old Man of Coniston down here and up to Dow Crag with just a little bit of Greyfriar showing above it. Pretty good match. Dow Crag sloping down this side and becoming, and just extending across in front of Crinkle Crags there, slopes down. Zoom in a little so we can see better. Dow Crag slopes down, runs across in front of Crinkle Crags, slopes down to there, becomes core, which is this bump here. It doesn't look like there's a bump there, it looks like there's a bump down here. A little lower than that. And in front of that you have a bump south of the turbines. About there, obscuring turbines. Well, not quite, hey. That's where one of the turbines should be, and that's where there's a little white stick sticking up from this bump. Not bad. Scarfell Pike's too high in the photograph. Great End's a little too high. These bumps are too high. Scarfell Pike's too high. Scarfell's too high. And this grey line for calculated horizon level is way too high. So is the base of Blackpool Tower there. Sea level at 9 kilometres. Again, zigzag line of sea level at various distances. I got a really weird result at 9 kilometres, so I just clicked off to the side slightly, which is why it goes off to the side slightly and back. Zoomed well in on this picture. Blackpool Tower deck here compared to here, and summit up there compared to down there. So in conclusion, at least for now, at least until I bother doing it with 1.25 refraction, the shapes of the mountains work. The overall calculated skyline at each distance works. One distant fell behind the crags here, behind the bump works. This nearer peak of Dow Crag with Greyfriars just peeking over its shoulder there, and the near peak of the Old Man of Coniston with Swirl Howe visible over its right shoulder there, and then Black Sails and a low part and Weatherlam, they work. They work perfectly. So this calculation of perspective definitely does work, but I got the wrong amount of refraction. Somewhere there should be coaster height markers. Yeah, coaster sea level, coaster top. That's gone wrong. I looked at the height of the coaster and it said 20 metres. That mark is 20 metres above that mark. From this, I am forced to conclude that the coaster base is actually quite a long way above sea level. If we assume that's the right height for its distance, it's about a thumb width on my screen. Long way above sea level. Maybe 70 metres above sea level at the top. Or maybe the number I got for the height of the coaster was actually the height of the old wooden one, not the height of the big one. Oh, I did include more sea level markers under here as well. Scafell Pike down there. The turbine sea levels are much higher up. Core is in between because the turbines are nearer. Core is in the middle. Scafell Pike is in the background. Sea level under Great End is a lot lower in this photograph than sea level under the turbine because Great End is farther away. Sea level under Esk Pike, well below sea level at the coaster. Definitely got that wrong. Sea level under that fell, however you pronounce its name, way down there, under Crinkle Crags, which is a little bit farther south and a little bit closer to us, it's a little bit higher. Under the tower, well, slightly wrong there. And likewise, under Swirl Howe, which is that one, it's up here, whereas under Pike of Blisco, behind it there, it's that little bit farther down, because sea level way out there over beyond the curve of the Earth is sloping down away from you. High Rays, even farther than Pike of Blisco, it's even lower. Pretty good, not perfect, method works, refraction estimate was wrong. Turns out globers do know how to do perspective, hey. Turns out we do.